ended up having a really interesting wake up with me yesterday, where we ended up in a hand quiz that really kind of blew my mind. Ended up having a really and I decided to edit it into a pretty entertaining Jedi mind trick. I'm still working on it. It's not quite done, but it's pretty good, and it just kind of blew me away because it was like I learned something really important yesterday, and there are these breakthrough moments, like if you think about the first time you realize that if you c bet the majority of the time, you're just going to win the pot on the flop, right? And you're sitting there going, "This can't possibly work again," and then you do it again, and it works again. It was a move kind of like that I feel like I can incorporate into my game very easily, and it really kind of blew up my brain. And I did the math on it, and it was an interesting spot. And I did a little more work on it after the stream, and I realized that it's a spot that comes up fairly often, like a few times in a tournament. As often as going bet goes, this will happen. So definitely wanted to do a little more in-depth work on that. Today and tomorrow I'm playing. I'm gonna probably edit on Monday, but today and tomorrow I just want to play good long MTT sessions. So we're just gonna do some hand quizzes, then I'm gonna do a couple errands, chill, and come back and play at about 3:30 Vegas time, and we're gonna have some deep runs and probably win something good. So let's start out with, I believe this is Faraz Jaka's hand quiz. I picked three of them. They're right in a row. Three different coaches, three different styles, but very good to learn from. So let's check it out.
Queen 9 suited in the small blind here. We're playing a 109 tournament online. We are a bit deep in the tournament. Do you want to call, or do you want to 3-bet to 800, or do you want to fold?
Obviously, we're never folding. The hand's just got too much equity. This is very similar to the hand we played yesterday with the Jack 9 suited, but we were on the button. This one, we're in the small blind. If there had been a caller, I could honestly see, like if the cutoff had called, or the high or the button, I could see squeezing, but there's nobody to squeeze here. There's only one guy. I think people get caught up in forgetting that a squeeze happens between two people. One guy here, one guy here. You squeeze them. That's always the way I remember it. So I'm just gonna call. It's pretty early in the tournament. We're not super deep, but we're not we're not shallow. So yeah, call all day.
I'm mixing here. I think calling and 3-betting are both super reasonable. Just purely a mix for me. Decided to call this time. Flop was Jack 8-4 with 1 spade. It's a rainbow flop. Opponent c-bets about half pot. So here we again have the option to either call, or to check raise for 1,000, or to fold.
There's a lot of merit to check raising. Basically, when we check raise, we're kind of saying we have at least top pair. Usually it's two pair when the small blind does this. But I think, though, in this exact instance, we can control the size of the pot better and just call. So without any reads on this player about his tendencies, aggression, or nittiness, or whatever, I'm just going to call and float to the turn with my backdoor spade draw and gut shot and overcard.
It's another spot I don't mind check raising or calling, mixing with my queen 9s. But so yeah, I just called. Turn is an 8. I'm going to give you an option to lead here if you want to take it. You can either check here, or you can lead out for 410, lead out for 700, lead out for 1100.
So again, two schools of thought. I'm just now learning and integrating when to lead out here. I'm not sure on the sizing, but I think it's close to 700, because the idea is you don't want to blow the person off when you've improved your hand massively, and you don't want this street to go check check, because if you had an 8, that's what you would want, right? Now it kind of breaks the rhythm and fucks people up, so most people won't play it that way. For a bluff, it works excellently because of that fact. But also 50% of the time, I'm just going to check, and then look for a check behind, and then lead river. So I'm going to go with, I probably do that about 60-70% of the time, 65% of the time. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and just check.
This is a spot where people are pretty tempted to lead here because they have it programmed in their head that they can always lead when second pair or third pair pairs the board. And that's a lot more true when you are in the big blind, because in the big blind you have all these offsuit eights, so you end up having way more eights than your opponent. We do have more eights than our opponent here, but I'd say maybe by a factor of double. Whereas usually if we're in the big blind here with a bunch of offsuit eights, then it's way more. So I think leading here is okay, but I wouldn't say it's like a spot where we're just leading like a super high frequency like we are out of the big blind. I did end up leading here, but I
This is one of those scoring things that I don't like. So Faraz is down talking, leading out of the small blind here on the turn. And this is just something that people, that these coaches do, and it's not a bad thing, it's just very common. You have to realize that after you've seen a couple hundred of these, you realize players do this. So he's right. I would be more inclined to lead out of the big blind because I would be more likely to have an 8 in the big blind, right? We can have all the 8s, right, when we defend because it's so little. When we defend out of the small blind here, just calling, usually we have pairs, we have Broadway cards, hands like that. So leading isn't as convincing, which I guess was a factor into why I wouldn't lead out of the small blind here. So I hit check, and Faraz even says it's not a good spot to lead. So he's saying that the check was the better option. He still scored us 4 points because that's not what he did here. Jonathan Little will always say, I made a mistake. I should have checked here, and I gave you 10 points if you did. But if you did what I did, you got 4 points. Like, that's the way I think you should do it when you go back and analyze hands. Faraz is kind of getting caught up in, did our answer match what he did versus was our answer the best play the majority of the time, which is what we're really looking to learn here. And I think it's just something to be aware of when you're doing these quizzes. And it is a wake up with me, but honestly, after all the editing yesterday and really dying to play, I'm waking up pretty sharp. So it's good to recognize those when they happen, but let's let Faraz, keep going. So he bets 410, which is a good bet, a small bet, because it looks like we're trying to get something. I do tend to bet too big when I play this move. And it also allows us to, if we get raised, well, we know that the player is not falling for our crap and we can just get away, or maybe we have other moves available. So he's right. The small bet here is important. A third pot lead on the turn, because it is a bigger pot now because of his lead on the flop. Makes a lot more sense. So I got to remember that and size down when I do this. So, but let's go on.
I think I was leading in these spots a little too much. Not respecting exactly what I just.
He's even saying that he's doing this too much. He's saying this move, what he did, he's saying is wrong. Now he can say what I did was wrong, so if you did this, we're going to score you right. But going from here, now in this situation, what would you do after you led the turn?
Said that, out of the small lane, we don't have these 8s as often as we do when we're in the big blind here. So I did lead though, which I think is okay. I prefer just to check. Again, if we were at the big blind here, I'm leading here 100%. Opponent calls, and river is a 7. Here we can check, bet 900, bet 750, or bet 2400.
Interesting. So we've done the turn barrel. And now we want to bet the river. And with an 8 or 9-10, a lot of players lead straights on turn, lead straight draws on turn, 8, 9, 10, jack, and then the 7 comes off or the queen comes off, and they make the big bet bomb on the river. But I think it's more reasonable to, I think we go 3/4 pot bet. I think that's big enough. I don't think we have to overbet, because when we get played with there, we kind of, I think, look too bluffy. If I really wanted to bluff this and make the big bet bluff, I would honestly go 2x pot. I would just, and I have 5K, so I might even go just all in. But that would be if I was convinced my opponent had a jack with a good kicker like ace jack. I'd have to be convinced of that, and that's a very specific read. And if that happens, then he can't call 2.5 times pot. But I really don't think it's necessary in this instance. I think a standard 3/4 pot, hey, I have an 8, I have the straight, I'm getting good value, bet will work 90% of the time. So that's what I'm going to do is bet 1750.
I am definitely leading here again. That's a great card. It completed the straight, and we would have played 9-10 this exact same way. And we do have the 9 in our hand too to block them from having 9-10 or from having a 9 they could hero call with. So I'm definitely going for it here. I'm also going to bet big. I want to put a lot of pressure here. I bet 1750, which I'm mixed. I wouldn't mind going a little bit bigger as well. So I could go either way between this or the overbet option. I think both are fine.
I was saying I like that because we didn't see the answer. So Faraz ended this because he said this is the correct play, and he gave us the full 10 points. So I think we played it perfect. I'm going to leave this here so it's a reminder to me of that. I don't want to correct that, but I think when we don't see the hand, obviously the player just folded, right? Well, it's either that because we didn't get to even see the fold, or in this specific instance, Faraz got called by a weaker player who wasn't thinking that much and just rolled over a jack on him. But this is the correct play, so I think ending the hand there is good. It doesn't really matter what happened. This play is going to work 90% of the time with this decision tree. And I like it. And yeah, so I think my big improvement to take away is on the turn, I'm leading too big. So I got to lead the turn for smaller because it just kind of breaks the rhythm and it does get the pot to a manageable point. And if I had led the turn for 700 and he had called, then our river bet proportionally at the same size would have to be around 2200, 2100. So we risk 400 less chips when we're just running into it. So that's another benefit of betting small. Having the 9 in our hand, awesome, because we block the other 9-10s. We should have the straight a lot. I like it. I like it. It's a good simple one. It's one of those ones that seems complex until you've done it 100 times. And then it's just like, oh yeah, this is the way I do this. And here's the thing. Playing out of the small and big blinds, that's where everybody loses the most, especially in tournaments. You want to find ways to win pots that you have no business winning. And when you have a big positional disadvantage, this is a great way to do it. Let's go on to the next one.
Hey, Poker Coaching, it's your coach, Tristan, and I have another 2-5 No Limit Hold'em cash game quiz. So in this hand, we flop trips, and we need to figure out how we can get value. So 2 players limp. I also limp on the hijack with 6-9 suited. I think that's fine. I can totally have some suited connectors in my limping range, and if my hand was stronger, like King-9 suited or 8-9 suited, maybe I would just be isolating it. But yeah, I think it's cool to have these in my limps. And an unknown player on the cutoff makes it 4x. So everyone decides to call. Perfect. And we get a great flop. We flop trips with the flush draw. So we check to the razor and they bet 30. Action folds back to us. How do you think we should proceed here? So we are heads up. We are out of position. And our opponent has bet 30 into a pot of 90. So what do we do? Do we fold? Do we call? Do we raise to 100 or do we raise to 75?
This is a very standard cash game spot. It was a limped pot and a 2-5. It looks like a very passive 2-5. If you said this game was in Vegas, I would say that this is probably at MGM. No, it's at Caesars, because you'll see passive players at Caesars. It's a big tourist area. Bellagio, not so much, more serious. One of the more casual, common man's casinos. So Caesar's Palace, Harrah's, when they had poker rooms. MGM too, but they don't get the 2-5 going much. South Point for sure. All those, all the station casinos, just passive games. Like this is not happening at the Wynn or the Bellagio or the Resorts World. This just isn't happening there because those games are full of too many good players, and somebody would have raised before it got to this guy, and somebody would have 3-bet 90% of the time. So Yeah, so I think it's just a regular passive game, and in those instances, we're not going to really get creative. I mean, yeah, there's specific times when you can do it, but we don't have any reads. It's an unknown player. We're just trying to get the money in, really. So we're just going to call, and then let him do something on the turn.
Well, we definitely don't want to fold, and we want to be aware of what happens when we raise. So I think raising to 100 is the best play here. I gave that a score of 10. We do want to raise our trips when we get there, especially if someone's got a range that they're going to continue with, like overpairs or a flush draw. The other option here is to just call. I gave that a score of 8. I think raising to 75 is too small and it looks too strong. I'd rather you raise to 100 if you want to play like your ace 3 of clubs this way, or even like your 6 7 of diamonds or 7 8 of diamonds. If you wanted to play some backdoor hands like that as a bluff, I think we want to go with a bigger raise rather than a small raise. So yeah, raise to 100 or call would be the default here. So I raise and we get called. The turn is the 10 of spades. What should we do now? Should we check? Should we bet 140 or should we bet 250?
Okay, I generally agree with what all the points he's making, although I feel like this is another quiz where it's too specific a situation. Uh, there was 3 limps. A player raised in the cutoff, the latest position, got called once, went to a flop, and then led for standard c bet. Yeah, he can have all the aces, kings, and queens, and jacks, tens, all the things like that. But he also has a whole lot of nothing. He's in late position, man. Like, there's not a lot for him to have there. Because, I mean, granted, some players check the ace-king. Although, if your ace-king is good, why let a card come off, right? What if I just have, jack 10 here on this flop? You're not just going to check to me and let me hit a 10 like what would have happened. You're going to bet something. Monster draws, I guess, can check because you kind of can get greedy in cash games. But in all honesty, this betting pattern told us nothing. It was 3 limps. He made it 30 in a 2-5. So a standard open in a 2-5 would be about 15 or 20. He added for the 3 limpers, making it 30. It's a little low. Like, his raise should be at probably minimum of about 35 should be his open. But in all honesty, 30 is not small enough. Like, if he had made it 20, then I would be like, okay, this guy could have aces for sure. But I feel like that we're just not getting enough information here to make this assumption that when we check raise, our opponent has something good enough to continue with. Not yet. When he does it, when he bets again on the turn, then yeah. You know what I'm saying? Or he's just barreling and we're not going to get any more money anyway. But at least we get that turn back. So I don't 100% agree with his analysis. I grant you it's close just because of standard betting patterns, but with no information on any players in a standard passive 2-5 game, I think the call is the better option, specifically here. Now, again, we're back to quizzes are great training tools, but they're made by people, and people retroactively think everything they did was perfect. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to analyze this. So scoring perfect scores in all these quizzes isn't always the goal. It's to consider the situation and understand all aspects of the Force, not just the dogmatic view of the Jedi. You're supposed to analyze everything. So I think he's giving a little too much weight to our opponent having something he can continue with. I think a lot of times when you check raise here, you're just going to see the guy pitch it in the muck when he would have barreled again on the turn, and then you just threw away another, $80, $100. So yeah, but I can see his point, but gave me mostly credit, so that's cool. So on the turn after check raising, now the question is, how much do we want to bet? Do we want to bet 140? Do we want to check? Do we want to bet 250? I think 250 because our hand is so strong is too much. Now you can say, what is he calling with? If he has a suited clubs, we want to charge him to continue. That's true. If he has an overpair, something like jacks, he's not going to fold to a bigger bet just yet because we could be barreling with the club draw. Betting half pot, does achieve some of the same things, but if he has a flush draw, he's getting very good odds to draw to it. He's getting better than 3-1. So I think I just talked myself into betting 250. There is a case sometimes for checking if you got the feeling the player had an overpair. Like after he called, if you thought like maybe he has something like jacks or tens, and he just wanted to see what the next card was. Sometimes you would sit there and stare at that 10 on the board and just be like, You know what I'm saying? You just kind of like stare at it and your timing, and then you would go, check. And then you would see him bet in this pot probably around 100. And no, he'd probably bet about 200 into 287. Because now he figures you're check raising on the flop with a draw like clubs and trying to get a cheap river. Implying the fact that if he bets again, you're going to check raise him again. You very rarely get to check raise somebody twice in a hand, but there are certain instances where you can, and when there's draws on the board, it's very common. But these stacks aren't deep enough for that. You'd need we'd both still have to have, going into the turn, we'd have to have 800 big blinds, 680 is just, or 136 big blinds is too small. $800, so we would need 400 or 500 big blinds left. So there's just not enough motion there. So I think I talked myself into betting 250. Personally, my big bet wouldn't be quite that big. It would be about 220, 240, but I did always tend to find the exact bet, and then for my purposes, either back it off a little or bring it up a little. So if this is the moment where the guy will call, but he'll fold here, then if I want him to fold, I would bring it up just a little bit. And to me, that was perfect poker at the time. And if this is the point where he'll fold and I just wanted him to call, I would back it off a little bit and then get him to call that maximum value bet. This isn't really the best way to play poker because you're thinking too much, you're wasting too much energy on these small decisions. The fact of the matter is, if he calls here and you bet here, way further back, as long as you didn't really kill yourself, losing an extra 4 or 5% isn't a big deal over time. It'll add up, but if you don't agonize over it, you're not going to take as much time betting. You may get called at a greater frequency. There's those factors. And then if the guy's going to fold here, or if this is his calling range and he's going to fold here on the bluff, you can go out here and it doesn't fucking matter. Once you reach that point, it's fine. And then you can just, if the bet's 285 and you go 300, he's still going to fold, So little things like that. So I'm going to go with the 250. I think I talked myself into it. I think it's fine. I might be leveling myself because I did just wake up. But, let's see what's up. Let's see what's up. Ooh.
So we should be a little bit worried that our kicker isn't great if we...
Wait a minute. We should be worried our kicker isn't great? That's what we're worried about on this board? Okay, this is a specific player hand. We don't give a fuck about our kicker. This player raised pre-flop. He's the opener. If we're going to range him with 9s in his hand when he opens, then we might as well not even play the 6-9. You're playing the 6-9 so that when you flop something monstrous, you just play it for its straight value. Are there going to be instances where he's going to have ace-9, king-9, queen-9, jack-9? Yeah. But they're super fucking rare, man. The most common one he's going to open with is honestly 10-9, and now that's far less common because of the 10 on the turn. I don't think I like this hand anymore. I think this is too specific. I think this is an incident where this guy played this hand and then retroactively is making it into a quiz. I don't like this one anymore. The first words out of his mouth on the turn should not be, "We're worried about our kicker." His first words out of his mouth should be, "There's a chance that the 10s just got there." That's the first one. So I'm kind of disavowing this quiz now. I'm like the points that I'm making. I'm going through good, solid, fundamentally sound poker. Poker's not about very specific situations versus very specific players in very specific days of the week on a very specific year of your very specific life. No. Poker's about the 1 million decisions that you make over and over and over and over. And if you can do those better than everybody else, you're going to win. It's like Bruce Lee said, "I don't fear the man that knows 10,000 different kinds of kicks. I fear the man that knows one kick but has done it 10,000 times." You know what I'm saying? So know your good spots. This is a bullshit quiz now, but we're going to try to get something out of it by analyzing it. So don't take this as, gospel at this point.
We had 9-10 and had a full house here. Awesome. If we had a hand like ace-9 suited or king-9 suited or queen.
So you're saying if we had the nuts, that would be great. I agree with that.
queen nine suited or something, I think that's better. But we're kind of low on the 9x range. We probably never have.
This is a 2-5 game. This is a 2-5 game. This is not a 25-50 game. The 9x range is not something you're going to bring into the game until you get to the higher levels, because 9s are probably the second hardest card in the deck to play with in your hand. Not just in Omaha, but in Hold'em too, because of their connecting value and their reverse implied odds, like situations like this. But that's why players don't play them as much. The worst card being a 6. This is just straight game theory, and combinatrix and overall card value. Like, if you gave me a choice with random cards and you said you can have 7-4 or 6-9, I'm taking 7-4. Just because when I make something with that, it's far less likely I'm going to be outkicked. There's situations with Jack 9, Queen 9, 10 9, 8 9, all those. But when we're in a game where we're playing this hand and we trip it out, we're just getting value, bro. The only thing we're really worried about is a flush.
Have 9-4 suited and have 9-3 suited, 9 deuce suited, and hardly 9-5 suited. So
he just put in 9 deuce suited into that range. No, you're not playing 9 deuce suited for a limp in a 2-5 game. No, not in the hijack. You may open with it if you feel froggy and the table's passive as fuck. Yeah. And to make a finer point, if I'd signed 2 limpers and saw a hand that I wanted to play in a 2-5 game that was that passive, I would have been the opener. This hand would have gone completely differently because I would have raised to 30.
So we could be up against a better 9 here, although that's just a small portion of this person's range. Like I said, their range is going to have all over pairs and club combos. So I just want you to think about where you are in terms of your range when you go for value, because we have stronger hands here to go for bigger value. So if you wanted to bet 250,
we have stronger starting hands here to go for bigger value, yes, but they're rare. Pocket 5s obviously being the best one. Pocket 9s we're always going to raise. Pocket 10s we're always going to raise. So when we limp pre-flop and call a raise, pretty much pocket 5s is the only one. I guess we can have pocket 8s. That's true in that galaxy, but I'm probably going to open that too versus 2 limpers. Like, this decision tree doesn't make sense at this point. He's retroactively fixing history. So, and here's the thing. This is a great player, but not all great players are great teachers. And he is a great teacher, but not in this format. This is like the second or third one of these that I've done with Tristan on poker coaching, where his logic is retroactive. And I know that going into his quizzes. Now, he's giving us good examples, but we have to kind of extrapolate the true nature of the hand, I think, because he's playing a very specific hand. And he always looks like a hero, by the way.
I think that's a bad bet here, and I gave you a score of 3. I think the best bet is a smaller bet of like half pot, and so I gave 140 a score of 10. We also don't want to be checking here because we check raise the...
Here's a factor, though. If you bet 140 into 280, you just bet 1/3 the pot. Players getting 3-1 on a call, or I'm sorry, getting 4-1 on a call. If he has 2 overs or if he has a flush draw and no overs, you just gave him the best odds of his life. So that's why my bet would have been about 200, because then it costs him 200 to win 680, which is less than 3-1. So even if he gets there, he made a mistake, no matter how small it is. And players will know that at 2-5. They'll be like, well, I can't draw to a flush that might not even be good. I could actually be up against a full house. But when you give them a good price, they go, well, I could be up against a full house and be beat, but this price is so good, man, and a flush is going to win a lot here, so I'm going to go ahead and call. Like, you're walking the dog right into beating you. I don't like this.
Flop. So I think a lot of opponents would just check back the turn and try to just see one more street, even if they did have a strong hand. So 140 is the best play here, and that's what we do. Now, take into consideration what I said on the turn.
He just said 140 is the best play here, and that's what we do. You can never definitively say what the best play is. It doesn't matter what the result is. The best play is the most successful on average over time in these scenarios. There's no definitive answer here because this hand has been so fucked up at this point.
And think about, what do we do here on the river? Do we check now that the queens come? Do we bet 200? Do we bet 300? Or do we just go all in?
So here's what I'd like to do. If it was me in this situation, I would like to induce a bluff, because our hand at this point, as played, betting check raising bigger on the flop proportionally, and then leading smaller on the turn, and then a queen hitting the river that's not a club, you know what I'm saying? It'd be very insane if we had King Jack and just randomly decided to go off. We could have King Jack of clubs, but that's kind of very rare because there was no open pre-flop. So this goes back to the hand that I played yesterday, or the hand that we reviewed yesterday on the quiz that I made into a video, where here I think I would like to induce a bluff. I think I would like to put a difficult situation out there. The player has 108 big blinds left. We both have the same. That's about a pot-sized bet, a little less. So it's proper for him to call us with anything good, but also we might look like we're blockering or taking a bad bluff if we bet small. So the small bet into 567 is like 100, 120. You know what I'm saying? Maybe a little bit bigger than the turn. Maybe we do the turn bet again. We do 140, right? After that was bet. Because then the player is going to, it gives him room to bluff us. Because then if we bet 140, he has $400 behind. And if he's really convinced that we're just full of crap, but maybe he has something that we can still beat, right? Like, let's say we had the ace 10 of clubs, right? Or, no, better yet, the 10-8 of clubs, right? We would have limped that and called. Cool. We could have check raised for that flush draw. Then on the turn, we could have bet small when we saw the 10 that we made the pair. And on the river, there's a queen, and maybe we're afraid of that queen. Maybe we don't know if he has kings or aces. You know what I'm saying? Maybe he could have a better 10. He could have jacks. So maybe we just want to get to showdown. So maybe we bet small. And in this specific instance, I think we can actually bet like 100 here and induce the bluff. Because then he's going to go, okay, this dude's not strong. He's showing me weakness. He just wants a showdown. And at 2-5 especially, when players just want a showdown, you don't give it to them. You raise, because people rarely bluff the river. Checking to induce, maybe. That's close, Raziel. That's almost what I'm saying. And that works in 1-2. And in tournaments, honestly, a lot more. Checking to induce. Because players see checking as the ultimate form of weakness. It's really not. A weak action can be checking. It can be betting. On a lot of flops, like how often does this happen to you, right? You raise normally, right? You open, and then a player 3-bets you in position. Okay, you take a flop, and the flop's usually better for you than him. But then you check to him just because he's the raiser, right? And then he, instead of betting 1/3 pot, he bets like 80% pot. That's a weak bet, bro, especially in a tournament. You're saying, I raise pre-flop, I have ace-king, okay, I'm going to do that. I didn't get an ace or a king. I better bet really big to look strong. And that's not the way poker works. If you change your actions, you set off alarm bells in good players' heads. So when I see that in a tournament, I do this every day where I'm like I'd feel better here if this guy bets big. Then they bet 80% pot, and I'm just like, oh, cool. How strong is my hand? I'm just going to call and let him barrel. Or if I don't think he has that in him, which a lot of tournament players don't, I'm just going to go ahead and raise right there with just airball and just take the pot down. So a weak bet can be any size. A weak action can be anything. So in a cash game, I don't like checking to induce. Personally, I like the small bet to induce. Now, here's the thing. On this particular hand, this dude has mucked it up to such a point, and it's so specific, that I believe the best answer, according to him right here, is to jam. Because it's a 1-to-1 stack to pot ratio, and he thinks that his opponent has a hand good enough to call at 1-to-1, and we're going to have more busted draws. That's not the reality of this situation. The reality of this situation is when it plays out like this, is we're playing against a weak player with a good hand or a good player with a weak hand. And in those two instances, betting small makes them raise. And think about it, if it's a weak player with a good hand and we know that they're weak and we bet small, they're going to raise, and they're going to raise small. And we're going to know that, okay, we can only call here because this guy can absolutely have tens full and really be afraid. You know what I'm saying? Or he could have ace-9 and really be afraid. If it's a good player, usually they're not going to have the best of hands improved on the board because they're going to have more moves to them. betting small then allows him to make a huge bet to try and scare us. This also depends on how much the player knows about us. But the big bet, if I was to bet 100 here and just get jammed on for 540, I would just snap call. And I've done this live a few times, but now I'm looking to integrate it more since we reviewed that hand yesterday and I really analyzed the spot. And the analyzation only gave me the fact that I know that there are more instances of it that come up than I was recognizing. It's very common. Yesterday was one with top pair no kicker, and it made so much fucking sense that I just dove into the math of it after, and I was like, oh my god, I'm throwing away so much money here by not inducing. Like, I don't have to have trips to do this. I can do that with a queen here. You know what I'm saying? I agree. Tournament checking is much better than cash would be completely different. Yeah. And that's the other thing too, man. People aren't afraid to make as many moves in cash because you can just reach in your pocket, right? If you bust the tournament, at minimum, you have to get up and go re-enter, right? I mean, sometimes you can re-enter at the table, but even at a $60, off-strip casino tournament, you have to walk to the desk, say, put me in again, give them another $60, get a new seat draw. Yeah, it's a pain in the ass. But, and players don't like to bust tournaments, right? I've won the South Point tournament. I've only played it I went on a stint where I was going to South Point again for a couple months ago, just because I had to get out of the house. The restrictions were lifted for a while before the Delta variant really smashed down in Vegas, where I live. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to double mask it. But nobody else was wearing masks. There was no mandates in the poker room anymore. But I was like, I'm going to go play some live poker. And I started playing their $60 daily tournament just because I wanted to play live and I like tournaments, and I found it fascinating the way that the players who've been playing the same way for 30 years thought they were going to win. And I played that tournament maybe a total of probably about, I think honestly it was just about 20 times. I lost count. It was 18 or 20 times. I had all the receipts. And then I stopped going. And this is over the course of like a month and a half, right? And in those 20 times, I think I had about 30 entries, 35 entries, because, I would bust one and then go back up to the thing and get re-entered and go sit back down, right? So out of 35 entry tournaments, I won the thing twice and cashed it 4 times, which is an insane record for any tournament, but it's because of the players' tendencies. So it was pretty awesome and fun to do, but unfortunately, it's just too much risk out here with the COVID now. I mean, it's just bad, man. But the point that I was making is that those are weak players with strong hands. You know what I'm saying? So, thanks for coming out, by the way, man. I appreciate the interaction. You don't see, I don't get enough chatting during these because I kind of run my mouth the whole time, but I welcome people to throw in their opinion. That's what we're here for, to kind of debate it out. And I'm not the end all be all. I'm not right because I'm the guy with the stream. I'm the guy with the stream because I have the camera and the setup and shit. You know what I'm saying? I'm not the greatest player in the world by far. And I'm broke, so, we're Qui-Gon broke, getting better and trying to grind it up every day. So I think playing the meta game, I think he's going to say go all in. I'm going to stick with my answer, which isn't even up here. But I'm going to go with the lowest bet, which is 200.
So we definitely don't want to check. Sure, there's been a couple scare cards. The 10, they could have pocket 10s, and the queen, they could have pocket queens.
These things are not to be considered scare cards because we have just such a monster. We have this board locked. I don't know what you'd be afraid of here, except for specifically pocket 10s and pocket queens. But honestly, I think even queens folds the turn in a lot of 2-5 games if you play it properly. If you charge them properly, the big bet like I was going to make. Or they're just going to jam on you on the turn because they just think you're so full of shit. And if he hits a 2-outer when it comes, that's fine, but we get all the money in on the turn. So there's no scare cards here.
Could they have like King Jack of clubs? Sure. I don't think we need to worry, but they could have Jack 8 of clubs as well. But either way, they also have all the aces and kings still, and maybe they have like ace queen of clubs that we beat. So my point is that we want to go for value, even though it's been a kind of scary turn in river.
Let me correct that. He's gonna say bet bigger than 200, but smaller than a jam. We only have 540. There's 560 in the pot. A value bet here wasn't a choice. A value bet here is about $400 to $420. You're betting about 75 to 80% pot. A value bet here is not $300. That's about 60%, right? What's 10%? 56 times 6. That's 112 times 3. That's 336, right? Hang on. I'm just going to do the math on a calculator. I know I'm right, but his value bet of 300, if that's what he's going to say, I don't know. But if he's going to say you value bet it for 300, that's not big enough for true value, because it just doesn't look like anything. Yeah, that's 52%. A value bet would be, honestly, I'm going 70% in all cash games, and maybe a little bit bigger in a 2-5, because those players like to get their nuts up. But let's just go with 567. 70% is what? Yeah, it's like $400, man. Yeah, I would bet like I said, like 420 here, I think was my bet. Right? So what is that? 420 divided by 567. Yeah, 74%. Yeah. 300 is not a value bet here. It's a bad bluff. You're going to get called by if he has anything, but it also looks like I'm trying to get called if he has like just one pair. So like a guy with jacks just folds for 300, but believe it or not, will call for a jam. So it's fucking ridiculous.
Now, we could make an all-in bet, but I would prefer we go all in here with full houses or stronger nines.
I would prefer we go all in here with full houses. I would prefer a blowjob from Christy Turlington, but, you know, get the fuck out of here. $15,000? You ever see Rounders, motherfucker? You can't wish for fucking the perfect thing ever. What are you talking about? I wish I had the nuts. Yeah, me too.
Like ace nine, king nine, if we somehow got to the river with those nines, or 9-10 or queen nine, obviously. So with that said, I think the best bet here is a non-all-in bet that we can still get called by maybe a queen, maybe aces or kings, and if we just go all in here,
I guarantee you he has no idea what he would do if the guy jammed on him after his $300 bet. I guarantee you.
sure, we could still get called by aces or kings, but we could also be costing ourselves money sometimes when we are beat.
Sometimes.
So I think a bet of 300 here is fine. I gave that a score of 10. And if you did decide to go all in, I totally think that's okay too. I don't think it's a big mistake. I gave it a score of 8. I think the only mistake would be betting too small here in terms of like 200 or checking. But betting 300 or going all in, I think are both fine. I just want you to understand the difference as to maybe why you don't pick all in and why you pick
I understand the difference, bro.
half pot size bet or bigger here than all in. And hopefully I made that point with.
Yeah, you made nothing. Let's range this, okay? I'm going to show you how bad this is, okay? So here's the board, okay? What is it? 9 of clubs, 9 of diamonds. I'm just going to do this real quick. I know we're kind of harping on it, but I just want to show you you have to really think realistically. The turn is the 10 of spades, okay? The river is the queen of hearts, okay? Now, our specific hand is the, we're going to write our specific hand in here, is the 6 of spades, 9 of spades. Okay? Cool. Now let's range the opponent. Okay? He raised pre-flop. Let's give him aces, kings, queens, jacks, 10s, 9s, 8s, 7s, 6s, 5s, 4s. Yeah, let's give him all the pairs. Fuck it. Let's give him all the suited aces, right? Oh, you know what? He is raising, so let's not give him the ace-6. The ace-6 would call. The ace-8 would call. Let's make sure the ace-9 is in there. Let's give him all the good aces. Ace, king, queen, jack, 10. We'll give him ace-9. Some players will do that. Ace-5 can also do it. A lot of the wheel cards can do it. That's cool. Just the offsuits. King, queen, off. King, queen, king, jack, king, 10. Queen, jack, king, jack, king 10 off. The suited queens down to 9. We'll give him the king 9, jack 9, 10 9. I'm giving him all the 9s, by the way. Jack 10, 9 8, 9 7. Let's do all that. 10 9 off. 10 8 suited for sure. Jack 8. Let's go the queens down to queen 7 suited. Let's do all the suited kings except for there. So we're going to do the king 6. Okay, I'm going to give him all the nines. Understand that. This is not right. He's not raising with 9-5 offsuit. I'm going to give him every opportunity to have a 9 with us. Okay? And then King 9, Queen 9, Jack 9, and then all the suited 9s. He's playing all the suited 9s. This is not a range. This is a ridiculous thing for somebody to open with, right? So versus that, which is he could have anything. Let's evaluate it. We're 80% to win versus him having every opportunity to beat us. We're 80%. We have this board locked. This is exactly the odds that I ran yesterday and had 80% to win with the perceived range. That's why I did the small bet. This is exactly what I saw yesterday. You threw money away here. I don't care how this hand turned out for you in this specific instance. You played it wrong. Now check this out. If we do a reasonable range, okay, just real quick. A reasonable range, which does raise some suited connectors. Okay. I think that's fine. We'll take away the worst of the suited hands. Right? We'll take away these. And we'll take away the bullshit 9s. You know, the 9-8 off and, you know, such. We're going to leave the 10-9 in there off because a lot of players do that. We'll give it Jack 10 off. We're going to give away the hands that you wouldn't want to raise necessarily, like Queen 9 suited. So this is a limped pot. If that's so he's going to raise King 9, Queen 9. No Jack 8. No 10-8. This is a reasonable range. This is semi-reasonable from a loose, not great 2-5 player. Not bad. He's a winning player, but he's not great. Okay? With this range, we're not 79%. We're 80-fucking-3%. Eat shit. This board is board locked. No way, bro. You played this wrong. I don't care. I don't care if you got called. If he gets called on the river here, he lost money. He lost money. Even if he wins the hand, because he still has another 240 behind that he should have gotten in this pot. No way.
Without beating the horse to death. So with all that said, I did bet 300 on the river to try to get called. Kind of value-y, but maybe it also looks like I just missed a flush draw and I'm trying to win the pot.
Maybe? You're betting your money on maybe.
I don't want to risk my whole stack. And I do get looked up by 2 kings.
You lost money. He retroactively did this hand. On the flop, he said, we want to check raise against a perceived range that can continue. That flop does not have a perceived range for the opener to continue. It wasn't like it was 3-bet. It's not like we raised and he re-raised. And then the flop came down and we checked and he bet and we raised. That means that he has a perceived range he can continue that's good, like kings or aces. This is a retroactive hand. This is bullshit. This pisses me off because this is going to teach people wrong. And here's the thing. I know I'm the broke guy in the desert, but this is because he played this hand. This is the way it worked out. But I guarantee you 90% of the coaches on this site would say that he lost money here. You should have gotten this $240 in this pot, and it was easy to do. It wasn't hard. He was just so scared of getting beat. No. This is awful.
So that turned out in my favor to play it a little.
It turned out in your favor. You didn't control it. You didn't make sure it was in your favor. You didn't know it was in your favor. It turned out. Well, lucky you. He's relying on the deck, and that's gambling. I don't gamble. I play poker, man.
Fast here. And sure, there's other ways to play this. Check calling the flop, check raising the turn. But
that's not the only way to play it, by the way.
But yeah, I think this is the way to take action from the initial raiser and control the betting yourself.
You took action from the initial raiser who has kings in a non-threatening board. You took the action away from him. Doesn't seem like a good idea when you have kings just crushed. Oh my God. He didn't even let himself hang him. He didn't even let the guy hang himself at any point in this hand. Like, this is garbage. You had no read in this hand. I'm sorry. I know I get animated and I get loud and crazy, but I get upset because here's the thing. The site has over 1,400 of these quizzes on it, and 3 to 5 more are added every single day. And there's classes, there's challenges, there's homework, there's play and explains, there's hand histories, there's the tools, the inner circle, and all that stuff. And Jonathan Little puts so much effort into this shit that there's no way that he can review all the hands that get sent to him as hand histories. He just says he has the person, I'm sure, do 1 or 2, right? And then he goes, okay, cool. And then they just tell him, hey, I turned in this or I turned in that. And he just goes, fine. And they post it, right? He has his editors look at it, make sure that it functions properly, and then gets it out there. But I guarantee you, if Jonathan Little saw this hand played this way, he would play completely differently. And I know that for a fact because just yesterday, a very similar situation came up where the range was 80% on the river like this, and we wanted to get all the money in. And he bet the small bet. This is exactly what yesterday was. So this is one of those things that's on the site that I think if you realize that not everything is gospel that you're going to see, you're going to be fine. Now, if Yoda posts it, meaning Jonathan Little, you take it as gospel. That man is Yoda and he is a robot. So he's GTO up and down. He's done all the solver work. He's one of the highest level players on the site. Obviously, there's guys like Matt Affleck, Faraz Jaka, Assassinato, all these people that are super high level players. But Jonathan Little plays in 100K buy-ins, man. I mean, he's no slouch. Like, look him up sometime. I mean, the guy made 30 grand a month playing fucking, what was it, 25-50 for like 10 years at the Bellagio. It was fucking insanity. Actually, it was like, but it mixed between that and 5,100. But made 30 grand a month doing that, playing live. Fucking animal. So let's forget this one, and let's move on to the next one. And I believe it's a Lexi Gavin hand, which will be good because a different perspective that females have is awesome.
Hey everyone, Lexi Gavin here, and today we're going to go over a hand that I played. This is the Venetian $800 175K, so it was an $800 buy-in guaranteeing $175K in the prize pool.
It sounds like a big buy-in, but just so you know, the Venetian holds the highest guarantee tournaments, 175K, right, divided by $800, and there's re-entries allowed in this thing. That's only 218 players. I guarantee you that thing got a $500,000 prize pool. So this is not a tough tournament. This is people with a lot of money who are at the Venetian. Oh, let's play a tournament. There's people who've never played tournaments in their life. They go to the Venetian and they like poker and they've played a little bit here and there, a couple times a month with their buddies. And they go, ooh, they have a poker tournament. How much is it to get in the poker tournament, sir? And they go $800. And they go, well, I would buy into a 1-2 with, $200. So that's like 4 buy-ins. And yeah, a tournament's fun. And they'll just play it. They'll just torch money on it. So it's a good spot to play. I haven't been back to the Venetian since 2006. But now that Sheldon Adelson is dead, I'll probably go back at some point because they're not actively working on crushing online poker because Sheldon Adelson was a bastard. Yeah, it's a great place to pick up soft tournament action. They have great, tough tournaments too, but if you're not down to the last, if you're not in the cash, the tournament's soft, man.
It was actually a pretty good event. I think I min cashed it. And this is an interesting spot. So the blinds are 100, 200 with a 200 ante. I think this was the second or third level.
So it's very early. We have 100 blinds.
We are in the big blind with deuces. The low jack raises to 500. The hijack calls. The button calls. And we call in the big blind with deuces. I didn't ask what you guys would do here. I didn't put this as a quiz because this is an obvious flat.
Yeah.
There's no reason to 3-bet here where we don't want to bloat a hand like deuces out of position. We're probably only getting called by worse, or at best we're flipping, so I don't like it. So we call. We're getting a good price to set mine as well. We flop bottom set on the ace, king, deuce with 2 spades. We check to the initial aggressor. The low jack c-bets 950 into a pot of 2,300. The hijack calls, and what do you think we should do here with our set? Should we fold, call, raise to 2,650, or go all in?
So interesting. I do think there's merit in all three. I like calling the least because this is the initial raiser, right? And he is in he's not in the latest of positions. He's in the low jack. So he can have a lot of aces. He can have a lot of kings, meaning ace, king, ace, queen. Here's the thing, though. Realistically, the only hands we lose to is pocket aces or kings from this player. Because if this player or this player, whoever called, and me had aces or kings in our hand, like 2 aces or 2 kings, we would have 3-bet, right? We also would have done it with ace king. So the most likely scenario here is that if we're beat, is that this player has aces or kings. That's it. So that being said, if that set over set happens, it's just too bad, man. We're going to lose. So we're not really worried about losing at this point. So let's just consider this, for our intents and purposes, the nuts. Okay? But what other hands are there? Well, ace king is there. He can have ace king for sure, and we have him crushed, right? Ace king can't really be here because he would have 3-bet. But he could have ace deuce, right? He could have the suited ace deuce of clubs or hearts. We have the club and the heart, so we don't know that. So what's left? Well, there's only the ace deuce of spades left, but the ace of spades is on the board, so that's not very likely. So there's a lot of flush draws. So if you use combinatrix and you can see what hands are actually missing because of what we have, like king deuce is not getting played hardly at all from this position. Like even if it was, it's still the same deal. There's only one combination. There's the king deuce of hearts. So we have this locked or we're crushed. Right? And there's only one guy that's got us beat, because I don't think this dude just calls with aces or kings, right? So there's draws out here, right? Okay. So now that we've determined that, what will continue? Spades. That's it. I mean, I guess the 3-4 can be out there, or the 10-jack, or the queen-jack, or some hands like that. But those are gut shots, man. So, the deuce of spades isn't here, so there is a time when the deuce 4 or the queen deuce of spades is out there, but queen 10 of spades can be out there, all those hands. So I think the hands that have draws have so much equity, and it's so early in the tournament that we're going to see a lot of flopping like that I think I like a raise better than a huge bet, right? So there's 2,300 in the pot. These players, he bets 950. That's a third pot C bet. That doesn't mean anything. It's just very standard. This player calls. That's 1,800. That puts 4,100 in the pot. Plus our call would make it 5,000. So I think raising is more proper, because I think we're going to get jammed on by all the 2 pairs, like ace king. And we're going to get jammed on by a lot of ace queens, by all the draws, the queen 10s, things like that. So there's a lot of factors here that make calling the best play. You know what? I talked myself into it. I think, and this is higher level, this isn't leveling myself, I think in this specific instance, if you take in all those factors of who can have what, I think we're only really ever up against a draw that doesn't love it. Because if you had the queen jack of spades, you might raise here to try to pot control and to play for value. But we do have 100 big blinds, right? So when we have 100 big blinds, I think we're trying to get it in with a set. So I'm going to change my original answer, because I think I would raise here to like 4,000 to try and make ace king go ape shit. Like 4,000, 4,200, try to make him go fuck that, all in. I don't want this guy check raising me with a flush draw and getting there. So he just jams with top 2 pair, or even ace queen can do it. Ace queen can definitely call. And then the other guy gets out of the way, and then we have it heads up versus 2 pair that we're crushing. But that's a very rare instance. So I'm going to go ahead and just call. I'm just going to call. I think it's better to keep him on the hook. I found a better play, I think, while we were talking. So
I think this is a good spot for us to put in the check raise. Now, the reason...
I mean, it is, but there's not a lot of combinations of hands that can call us that we beat, right? Like, if we get re-raised on the flop, we're kind of crushed. Like, if we check raise and then this guy just goes all in, like, we're never folding because he's going to have ace-king the majority of the time, but he has aces and kings, too. This guy, if he jams on us, it's a flush draw. So I like the raise, and I did originally like the raise, but my bet's not out there. I think this bet's too small. I want to go 4,200 and force all the action all the way in on the flop. I don't want this turn to come off, because that only costs them 1,700 to call to win a pot now of 7,000. I don't think it's enough. Versus a flush draw, I know it's not enough. So, but you know what? I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it. The 2650, because we are trying to get all the money in. Okay, from that perspective, I agree, because this raise isn't small enough to really push out a draw. It's just getting value from draws. So we're not really protecting against a flush draw, but we're saying you can draw, but you're going to draw for more. So okay, cool. I'm with it. I'm with it.
For this is, this is a very good board for the early positioner, the early position opener, and even the hijacked as well could have flatted the low jack open with ace queen, maybe ace king offsuit if he's not trying to bloat pots early on in the tournament. Of course, the low jack can have some set of aces instead of kings, but it's not very likely people flop sets. So I think this is a good spot to check raise for value. We're going to likely be getting a hand like ace queen to call. Ace king will certainly call. Ace king might even be willing to stack off. And there are, some flush draws too. I think that the low jack is going to be c-betting a lot of spade combos, especially when he can have the range advantage and represent the strong hands on this board. And I think when the hijack flats, he's also going to have some flush draws, especially because we don't block the spade draws. Typically, when I flop a set on a wet board, I'm more inclined to fast play it because people are going to be willing to gamble more with their draws. And especially this is like such a perfect board to flop a set on because so many of the opponents are going to have aces and kings that they're going to call you with. So it is a good.
My only more perfect board here is ace queen deuce. Or actually ace 7 deuce, I guess, if you want to talk about having it locked. But ace queen deuce, I think, gets you the most action because it's more likely somebody wouldn't have 3-bet ace queen after the opener. So there's a greater chance this guy has it. If you said to me, what's the best board for you to flop a set of deuces on? It's probably ace queen deuce with a flush draw. Just 2 flush cards. Yeah, that's probably it. Or like ace. If you have to have the ace and the deuce out there, I guess it's queen jack, because the jack would overplay the 2 pair, but what you would see is a bet here and a raise. And then we could just jam, and then this player folds and the guy rolls over the ace jack 100%. Never folds it, right?
Good opportunity to start building the pot on the flop. So sizing wise, we go 2650. I think that is a good size. We maybe could have gone a little bit bigger considering the extra flatter.
Yeah, that's my point. I would have gone about 38 to 4200. I think it's just a little bit too small for our purposes. And if they're going to call 2650, they're going to call 42, 38 to 42, somewhere in there. They really are. Like when they realize the size of the pot, I think the first bet that makes people start folding when the bet is 950 and called here from the original raiser, I think the first bet that makes them start folding is like, I'm so committed to this pot, it's insane. And 5,000 doesn't do that because we still have like 14,000 left. I think a bet of like 7,500 or 8,000, after this 950, which would be about a pot-sized bet. That would be like, whoa, this guy wants to get it in all right here, and that's it, and that's all. So then they have to have something strong to call us, which isn't a great bet to make because we're going to have those aces and kings just stick it to us all the time. But ace king we're going to get. We're probably going to get ace queen in that scenario, but it's too specific to play for it because ace queen's going to be like, that's a flush draw. You know what I'm saying? He's going to try to hero off because there's no 3-bet. He was the leader. So, but it's too specific, so I would never do it. I think 4,000 I think is my bet. 4,200, 38 to 4,200.
So I think anywhere between 2650 and 3,500 is good. I don't want to size too big because I don't want to price them out of their draws, and I also don't want the hijack. Like, I want to entice the hijack to come along with like a weaker ace, like an ace.
Playing for a third call is fine because if this guy's most likely to have an ace and this guy's most likely to have a draw and you're letting the draws draw for more, then you kind of want them both to call because this guy's just dead then. And then this guy, he's going to come along with the draw, and then you can proceed from there. So you make an extra 1,800 or 1,700 when you play at this bet. Yeah. And she's right. 3,500 in that instance with that thought process is correct.
Ace jack too. So that's why we go that sizing. The 9 of diamonds falls on the turn. What do you think we should do? Check, bet 49.50, or bet 8,800?
I think this is an easy one. We just bet half pot because we're using geometric betting, meaning if we bet 49.50 here, we'll have like 11,000 left. And if we get one call, there'll be 20,000 in the pot. And then they're never going to fold to a jam on the river. So if they call this bet on the turn with one pair, they're going to call the river as long as a spade doesn't come off and scare them. So, but then again, I'm not a live tournament player, so maybe you make the big bet here because you're trying to look like you're bluffing. So maybe you go 8,800. Now you don't have much left behind, so you're obviously not going to fold to a raise. But I think that you get more hero calls out of ace jack there in that instance. So it's tough. But personally, the way we're playing this hand to get all the money in, I'm going half pot.
So we definitely want to continue betting on this board. This is actually a really good card for us.
Yeah, it is.
It would be so magical if we got a flat, like our check raise got a flat from like a hand like Queen 10 of diamonds, like Queen 10 with backdoor diamonds on the flop would be beautiful. Because now they're probably not folding the turn. Not very likely when we check raise. I mean, that's kind of a stretch, but I guess the point is that this card it's not a scare card in any way for either of us. And, for them, it's like they're not thinking like that I'm check raising the flop with a hand like nines or anything, right? And, maybe our check raise was called by a hand like ace nine suited or something. So I think it's just a non-threatening turn. I think we might still get some calls from ace queen, ace jack, ace king for sure. So I think we definitely need a bet here. So we go 5K, about half pot, and the low jack shoves all in. Hijack calls, and what do? Do we fold or call?
Well, we got what we wanted. I think there's going to be a lot of draws here. I think there's definitely a time when we're up against just pure aces. But again, I don't think we can fold. We got what we wanted. We got the money in with a set at 100 big blinds. I think this is one where if you lose, you just lose. Then again, I'm not a live tournament player, so maybe the nuance here is so, like maybe this is so strong from this player that it's like he always has aces. You know what I'm saying? This guy has a draw 90% of the time, unless he just hit the 9 on the turn, which is kind of weird. Yeah, I don't think we fold here.
Okay, so this was a little rhetorical. I don't think anybody's going to say fold, especially after we put in so much money on the flop and turn. So we're definitely going to be calling here. We are going to get beat by, like I said, set of aces and set of kings. I don't think the hijack is going to have too many sets because I think he would probably 3-bet aces and kings pre-flop.
Right.
But who knows? I think that, he could have some 2-pair combos. So the low jack had ace king and the hijack had queen 9 of spades. We actually get coolered in this hand, which was unfortunate, but it happens. So that's why we played this the way we did. I think that both parties kind of played this okay. I think it was just kind of a cooler for us. So that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this quiz, and I'll see you next time.
Yeah, I think this is an example of not leveling yourself, right? And I think because I play online 99% of my poker, I think that's why my bets were improper. I always want to give credence to two things that I don't think people give credence to. One, the difference between live poker and online. I definitely think online players play better because the competition is so much harder and they are more inclined to study because you're at a computer and there's training sites like pokercoaching.com. But I don't give enough credence to the fact that live poker players kind of have a way of doing things. So the check raise is more impactful playing live. You know what I'm saying? So it doesn't have to be as big, and it can't be as big to accomplish the same purposes like getting all the money in here. So her bet, I think, is more proper. Yeah, I got to say it is. I think this is one where this is a live play blind spot that I have. Obviously, I think the results work out the same in this specific instance because of the ace king and the queen nine. Yeah, I think the results work out the same. And, we're not getting that flush draw. Now, here's the thing. That flush draw, we priced him into the draw. So it's kind of weird that they just decided to say fuck it for 15K on the turn. Because, kind of or for 11K on the turn, because kind of like they know they have to hit. And I think if the player thought about it more, they would be like, well, I can hit a 9 or a spade, but that queen's no good for me. But a lot of players don't think like that in game. So in this specific instance, we got the response we wanted, but I do think generally this betting structure is better for live than online. Online, the betting would just be a little bit bigger, and players are so much more inclined to draw that you can charge the shit out of them. And some players are just like, I draw to flushes. Like, they just don't care. They're just like, I don't know what the price is, but I draw to flushes. Like, if they have the nut draw, they're never folding. And that's very common online and live too. So this was a good one. I like it. I always love listening to the female coaches. I think as a male, you owe it to yourself to, if you get on pokercoaching.com, to go to all the quizzes and look up all the female coaches. She's a great coach, Lexi, and take their quizzes and see the difference in perception. Because men tend to be more aggressive and competitive. Women tend to be more cultivative and very aggressive. Don't get me wrong, very aggressive. But I think women come to the deep spots in poker where you're trying to get value easier than men. Because men, on top of everything else, we're very aggressively assertive. I'm the best player. Women don't give a fuck about that. They might be very competitive, but only with themselves. I think mostly they're like, I'm playing my best poker. I think is the attitude you get of more women poker players. So, like I said, if one is to understand the great mystery, you must study all aspects of the Force, not just the dogmatic view of the Jedi. It's a great quote. That's Palpatine at the space opera in episode 3. I'm going to go ahead and take a break for a while. It was a great stream, guys. I had a lot of fun. I'm going to come back. I'm playing today and playing tomorrow about 3:30 today, Vegas time. And I'll see you then. I'm going to host you to Tonka. He's a great player. If you don't know him, where the hell have you been? And you're going to really enjoy him. We'll see you guys. Bye.